Chris Brown now on the Westher Hotline, brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com by Northtown Volkswagen, Western New York's #1 VW dealership. Shop online at northtownvw.com and by Lockport Outdoor Store, high-impact gear for hardworking men and women. Chris, the Saints this Sunday. The Bills have only beaten the Saints one time at home ever, and it was 1983. I'm not sure you go that far back.
I do not. I was 11, so even I was young once. It's weird. It's one of the teams in the league that they've played the fewest times ever. And with this rotational schedule now, they at least play them once every 4 years, and they play them at home once every 8. And here we are. It was interesting. We were talking about this earlier in the week because the last time they came here, that was Sean Payton, Drew Brees. And that whole crew, and they just put a whooping on the Bills in their first year under Sean McDermott, ran for almost 300 yards, and it's very ironic that the shoe is completely on the other foot now. 8 years later, Kellen Moore in his first year, and the Bills, the #1 rushing team in football. So I'm very curious to see how this one plays out and if it's as lopsided. I don't think it'll be that lopsided, but we know that Coach McDermott may have held a little bit of a grudge, which is why he didn't mind beating down the Broncos in the playoffs last year, 31-7.
Yeah, and it's a 15.5-point spread most places. Some places maybe it's still 16.5. So it's the biggest one in the league so far this year, Chris. And, on paper, it's the biggest mismatch we've seen. The Saints were expected to be one of the worst teams in football. So far, they look like the worst team in football. There's really, though, no... We got a couple of fans, couple of callers, early on this morning, hey, the Bills... they at times will play down to their opponent, but I don't know. Neither of us really agreed with that. The Bills have a long history of blowing teams out that they're supposed to, or at least getting the job done. Really, the only game I can think of that fits that bill is maybe the Jaguars game with Urban Meyer years ago. But otherwise, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, they're very good, I think, at not taking opponents lightly when maybe they could.
Yeah, and I would say the big difference for the Bills the last year plus has been how efficient they have been and playing relatively mistake-free football. They've just reached another level when it comes to that, and it seems as though the team, the players, have come around to a way of thinking that, mirrors some of the great teams of the past, whether you're talking about the Patriots dynasty or the most recent iteration of the Chiefs, where year after year, even if they're not the same high-octane type of team that was just ruining people on a weekly basis, or maybe they get a week where they weren't playing airtight football, the efficiency of their play was still good enough to get them a 10-point win like last week, for example. So I think that's the stratosphere that the Bills have entered. As a team, you can at least be confident will play an efficient style, an efficient brand of football. And more often than not, that will win you, probably more than 70% of your games through the course of a season. How many times did we see the Bills with a 9 or a 10-point lead on the Patriots midway through the third quarter, and then they would do something to beat themselves and the Patriots would capitalize? That's kind of where the Saints are right now, because my God, they handed it to the Seahawks last week.
Yeah, well, the other way around, the Seahawks handed it to them, right? With special teams too, and we'll see what that looks like on Sunday. I wonder, because the offense, however they play this game, if they want to attack, with Allen, or if they want to run the ball, it feels like they might be able to do whatever they want. It's not that the Saints have this imposing offense, Chris, but I think third down defense is on the minds of a lot of fans. And again, it's Spencer Rattler. It's not a terrible group of receivers, but I wonder for you, how much you'll be watching for how the Bills defense looks in this game, and maybe even in those specific circumstances like third downs that they haven't looked so great so far.
Yeah, Rattler has arm talent. I don't think there's any debate about that. He's a talented quarterback. I find his 5.37 yards per attempt interesting. I was trying to pick the brain of some Saints people I was talking to this week to see if that's more a byproduct of lack of protection, or is it, hey, we just want to take high percentage completions to just try to stay on schedule offensively. I think it is more of the latter. And that worked well for them in the first 2 weeks, which both ended up being one-score losses. The wheels fell off last week because of special teams more than anything else, where, they get a punt return for a touchdown, they get a kick blocked, and it gets recovered at their 12-yard line. Seattle goes in and scores, and then they give up a 60-yard kickoff return, and Seattle goes in and scores again. And before they know it, it's 21-0. So I don't know if they can. I mean, if they can avoid that, the first two games would indicate that they're at least good enough to stay in a game. Whether they can do that against the Bills in a road environment, I think is another consideration. But they can make plays. We know that. Every NFL team has good talent. They force-feed the ball to Olave. He's second in the league in third down receptions. So you kind of have a good idea of where they're going on third down. So you roll all that together and you say, okay, well, maybe they can do a few things. But you're right. I think it's more about putting some of the Bills, I don't even know if, I guess you would call them deficiencies right now, under the microscope. That is third down defense. I think it's also red zone defense, guys, because through 3 games, the Bills' red zone defense is giving up 6.6 yards per carry. That's got to get appreciably better. They got to cut that number in half, maybe even more, if they want to be a more efficient red zone defense. Because if you let a team run in the red zone, you're pretty much cooked. You're going to be giving up touchdowns instead of field goals.
Chris, I wanted to ask you kind of your thoughts so far through 3 games, because I think Cole Bishop, right or wrong, took the brunt end of a lot of criticism, anxiety just about the position at large. What have your thoughts been through 3 games of his performance, and has he, injected some more confidence in you than maybe you even had going into the season about what he was capable of, just because we didn't see it?
Yeah, we didn't see it, so it's the unknown, right? I think it was very similar when Terrell Bernard stepped into the starting middle linebacker role. He missed the whole preseason, and we're like, this guy got named the starter? And my God, he was fantastic out of the chute there. I still remember his interception and fumble recovery game against the Washington Commanders in Washington a few years back in 23, when he and A.J. Epinesa kind of took over the game with takeaways. But I'm hoping it's similar with Bishop. And look, time on task, I think, is going to be enormously beneficial to him, because that's something he really hasn't had in his 2 years with the Bills here. So I think he's getting better with each passing week. If you just take a moment to focus on him when the defense is on the field, you'll see him doing an awful lot of pre-snap communication. I think he's capably pre-snap identifying some of what's coming at times. I distinctly remember Eric Wood on the broadcast pointing out it's actually on the Bosa forced fumble against the Jets. You look at that play pre-snap, he's telling A.J. Epinesa to hold contain on his side, because based on the pre-snap tight end movement, he knew Justin Fields was going to boot out to his side. So he's yelling at him, contain over there, hold that side. He does, and ultimately Fields tries to scramble and cuts inside, and that leaves him open to Bosa on the backside to come back and force that fumble. So just a small example of what he is picking up on the fly as he goes, learning how to study, leading up to the week, and then employing that in the game plan to help get his guys lined up and make plays.
So, Chris, seeing, his progression through 3 games and knowing what he kind of had to go through last year, what's your expectations if Maxwell Hairston does eventually get activated off IR and designated return and comes back? How do you expect Sean McDermott, just based on history, to play the cards with Hairston if he becomes healthy and available for this team down the stretch?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a slow burn here. And the reason I say that is we think about all the time Cole Bishop missed last year. This guy's missed a month more than that. Mm-hmm. So, we're going on 2 months. And I think we know how the process works. They don't just throw somebody into the deep end of the pool unless they know they can implicitly trust them on the field. I think that's why it's very rare that we see young players making catastrophic mistakes on the field, because they don't put them in that environment unless they absolutely have to. The Bills' hand was forced last year when they had to put Bishop on the field in Week 5 in Houston, and we saw a major mental error there, on the Collins touchdown. Yep. Aside from that, I really have trouble finding a time where a young player made some kind of catastrophic mistake, because they don't expose their young players to fall victim to stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a slow burn, working him back into, an opportunity to start or get snaps. We may even see a platoon situation when he's back and healthy and they feel he's ready. I will say this, though. The cornerback position carries far less overarching responsibility as it pertains to the entire defense. So I think that might accelerate his reinsertion into the lineup and playing a role that it might be for somebody like Bishop or a middle linebacker like Bernard.
Chris Brown on the Wester Hotline. Thank you, Chris. Enjoy the game on Sunday. It's supposed to be beautiful, 1 o'clock. So I know Bills fans are fired up for the game just because of the weather and the time. So enjoy the call, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, we're playing with house money right now. This has been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, it's summer. It feels like summer, basically. Jeremy weeps. Fall's elite season has hardly started yet.
Well, we got screwed out of May, so we're owed September.
We are definitely owed
That's
September, especially golfers.
Yeah, this was owed.
Yeah, amen to that.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care, guys.
Chris's appearance here on WGR brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com. By Northtown Volkswagen, Western New York's #1 VW dealership. Shop online at northtownvw.com. And by Lockport Outdoor Store, high-impact gear for hardworking men and women.